Newfound social media star, Canadian Jasmine Jasudavicius. She's going to welcome another Brazilian UFC newcomer, southpaw, and Gabriella Fernandes. And if you look at it for Jasudavicius, the last time out, she took on Natalia Silva. Silva was out for years. She broke her arm. She came into that fight and looked like a completely different fighter. And Gabriella Fernandes does share some similarities. She's good at striking on the outside. She is a southpaw. She throws hooks from her hips. And her ground game is not that bad. But
good submission.
If you do look at it in this matchup, it is a little bit of oil meets water based on the striking of Fernandes and the wrestling pedigree of somebody like Jasudavicius, but there definitely are some X factors to this matchup. Originally, it was supposed to be cast iron Courtney Casey taking on Jasudavicius, and about a month and a day ago, it was reported by Marcel Dorff that Gabriella Fernandes would be taking this fight. And for Fernandes, she is the LFA interim flyweight champion, and she's one of those fighters that really was able to not sink but swim with the LFA taking down a lot of cards to Brazil. And we saw that with the Bonfim brothers in particular. It was Gabriel that was able to become a champ there, end up on Contender Series, and end up into the UFC. Fernandes cut from that same cloth. And if you look at it for Fernandes too, you look at the level of competition, it's a little wishy-washy, but her very first fight as a pro in 2018 was a first round knockout win over Jasmine Lucindo, who's now in the UFC, and she finished her. So a really good win there. She only has the one loss on her record, does Gabi Fernandes. Now, she does struggle with her takedown defense in some of her fights. Her one loss is to Maria Silva, who ended up on Dana White's Contender Series and ended up losing. But you go through all of these fights, she is a very impressive, long, rangy type of striker that throws a lot of power, and she's able to finish, majority of her opponents, the Lucindo fight, among others. So I do like what I've seen out of Fernandes, but a tough fight for Jasudavicius as well, who switched up part of her training camp from Niagara top team to American top team. She's done a lot of interviews before this fight saying, among other things, she's trained with Yohan and Jacek, but down there at the gym, you got Karolina Kowalkiewicz, you've got Maeda Bueno Silva, who just got a win last weekend.
Nice. I've seen Joanna at ATT quite a bit as of late, helping out a lot of fighters. Makes you wonder if she is coming back, but that's a great thing to see because someone like Joanna and Jacek has forgot more about MMA in the last 5 minutes than I will ever know in my whole entire life. So having a resource like her at the gym is a very high level thing, but that's the thing. This is the issue I keep on going back for with Fernandes. We have seen a lot of fighters like her in the UFC who have very similar strengths and very similar weaknesses. Either A, have a ton of success to where they just finish everybody, or at least like their first 5 opponents until they start fighting upper echelon opponents, or they just struggle with that wrestling defense and it's the one hole that they're never really able to fix.
You end up like Estela Nunes, a strawweight.
Exactly, that's a very good comparison because for Fernandes, is she a great offensive fighter? Yes, she is. Like you said, her hooks are very good. She's very aggressive on the feet when she's able to fight at her own pace, but even on the mat, does she have good submissions? Yes, she does. But it has to be at her pace, and she has to be the one dictating the positions for a lot of her success to come. Because if Fernandes is trying to create separation, being forced to work and not being the one forcing her opponent to work, that's when she can kind of fall behind in some of the techniques. And that's what I worry about in this matchup. Because I think it is fair to say, are the highs higher for Fernandes in this matchup? I think that's probably fair to say. I would say her striking is probably more impressive than anything Jasudavicius can do. But Jasmine does have the one wrestling X factor that can really put out a lot of the offense that Fernandes is able to bring into the cage. But I will say this, and I guess I'll bounce this off of you. I didn't think very much of Silva when she fought Jasudavicius, and then she was able to beat her. Am I just putting Jasmine down too much because of that one performance?
I think so, because Silva looked really good against Teresa Bleda, who was like a force out. No, she was really good outside of the UFC, and Silva was able to stifle that. And Jasudavicius went 0-6 on takedown attempts against Natalia Silva. And if you consider it for somebody like Gabriella Fernandes, I mean, not that long ago, back in 2019, she was fighting on Thunderstrike Fight League 19 Christmas time over in Poland. Hell of a name for a card,
That's 3 years ago. That's a while ago.
Yeah, I guess so. It is now. But if you look at it for Fernandes, good striking, poor level of competition. You go back and watch the fights on those lower level regional scenes and with the LFA. Her second to last fight against Oliveira, she ends up winning. Her opponent taps due to strikes. She continues to hit her to the body, landing really good kicks. That's it. Like, I look at Gabi Fernandes as one of those fighters, kind of like OSP doesn't do it anymore. OSP's not like the old OSP, but what he used to do, he'd throw that body kick from southpaw, he'd throw it up to your head. Fernandes does the same thing. Big, long, rangy kicks. But in that fight against Oliveira, she walks out to Can't See Me by Tupac, which is the hardest song you could ever walk out
so
to.
Cool.
And then in her fight against Martine, she walks out to Ambitions with a Bussy by the Horny Boys. Matt, Gabi Fernandes.
Can I get a hold of her playlist?
Like, I don't know who's been putting it together for her. Maybe she's into that. Like, she just rips the Portuguese music up. Forget about it. I'm all about the hardcore American rap songs. But when you do look at these fights, Matt, I do like the striking. I do like what I see from distance. But again, she does struggle with some of these takedowns against not Jasudavicius level fighters.
That is very true. I just keep on going back to what happens to Jasmine if she's not able to get the takedown consistently in the matchup. We have seen her somewhat struggle on the feet because not that Jasmine is a poor striker, she's just not a developed one. There's not a lot of variety to what she's able to throw on the feet, and that's why I do think she might fall behind in a lot of these striking engagements. I do think it's as clear cut as if Jasmine can get the takedown, she's probably going to be able to win. Now, will it be the most entertaining of fights if she is able to rinse and repeat for the takedown? Probably not, because the thing is, if she does create a lot of separation and try to go for a submission, that will allow Fernandes at least a little bit of ability to buck her off and try to get back up to her feet, but hopefully this is just an entertaining fight for the fans.
Fernandes is a slight favorite in the matchup, making her UFC debut. For Jasudavicius, she was able to hit as an underdog against Kay Hansen. She was a pretty big favorite against Natalia Silva. So right now, Matt, I'm 0-2 at picking Jasmine Jasudavicius fights in the UFC. We have a look at the Tapology vote. Surprised us, they are to you. I'm going to say over-under. Fernandes is a slight favorite. I think she'll be over-under 62.5% Fernandes.
I think it'll be over. They've been pretty one-sided.
Yeah, and those early week voters are usually kind of more to one side. So 74% Fernandes on Tapology, 77% have her to win by decision for the 26% that have Jasudavicius, 87% by decision. And when you look at this matchup, again, the camp change for the majority of it for Jasudavicius, iron sharpening iron there with the striking. Somebody like Marina Moreau is probably going to get you ready for a fight like this against Fernandes, offering up a little bit of that striking. But when it does come down to this one, does the 2016 silver medalist at the Canada Cup in freestyle wrestling in Jasudavicius, does that win it out for her? Or does the former LFA champ continue that winning role, looking for another one?
I'm going to look dumb no matter what I say, because again, if Fernandes wins, it's going to be a dominant striking display. She's going to defend a lot of takedowns. She might even be able to get her own trip takedown or something and even look good with some of her own grappling. But if she looks bad, it's going to be a lot of porous grappling defense. It's going to be a lot of her getting held down to the mat. It might not make for the most exciting fight if Jasmine's able to win, but her one X factor does directly counter a lot of what Fernandes is able to do. So I guess I will pick the slight underdog in the Canadian and Jasmine Jasudavicius. But again, if she's not able to win this matchup, then maybe I will think differently of Fernandes moving forward, because I do like the positives of her skill set. It's just the negatives somewhat concern me about her overall ceiling.
Well, and that's it. Like, when you look at Silva, I didn't even know what we were going to get coming into the UFC. You could watch whatever tape you wanted. It was years since she had taken a fight, and then she goes out there and looks amazing, and then in her next fight, she's able to defend a lot of takedowns, get a knockdown, and then beat Bleda. And when you look at this matchup, Fernandes has been taken down by lesser fighters than Jasudavicius, but she does fight in a similar way to somebody like Natalia Silva. I like that. I like the counters from the southpaw and somebody like Fernandes, so I will go with the favorite in the matchup. I'm going Fernandes. Matt going with the Canadian and Jasmine Jasudavicius, so a big-time matchup in this one. Let us know who you have in these fights. Coming up this weekend, Krylov and Spann in the main event. You're not going to want to miss. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.